these people might not feel to be accountable enough, because there are a different set of rules for them, Hence, I stressed that if they don't do well, it means that others have done well, so they deserve, to be in the office. But, ironically, Kate, I think I must share this with you. When I was recalled, in 2018, unfortunately, the same gesture of managing transition was not reciprocated to my mayoral staff. They were literally thrown out of office, and they had to loiter around doing nothing. And there was double parking because the new mayor came with his own staff. So there was double parking because, that's politics for you otherwise.
Okay, Mike, thanks for calling in and sharing that experience. And I guess there are realities in terms of how we would want things in the public service to be run, how we would wish for them to be run, and versus how they're actually done. And both those examples of that Mike has shared with us are example of that. And everything flows from the leaders. If you have a leader that sets a particular tone, everything else is going to follow suit. Alfred, you're out in Mpumalanga. Good morning.
Cathy, how's it?
I'm good, Alfred. Go for it.
I'm good. Cathy, I'm saying the move of Floyd to MK party, I should think I must say it's a very big win for MK party. You see, politics is not just politics, Cathy. It's not just talking in politics. In politics, you need somebody who's tried and tested, somebody who's conversant with politics. How does it take to become a politician? You see, for Floyd, it's somebody who knows politics, knows almost all the dynamics in politics, and the man has an understanding of what is politics. I'll tell you, Cathy, from now moving forward, I think in an MK party, we are going to experience, or we are going to learn that some of the things are done in a different way politically. I think we are going to see the guidelines forwarded to the ground on how to build the organization. We are going to see guidelines set up in establishing the branches, the sub-regions, the regions, the provinces, and up to that national itself.
Okay.
It's not an insult.
So Alfred, I take it you are a member of the MK party. Sounds like it.
Yes, I'm a member.
Okay. And so you welcome then the move of Floyd Shivambu into your organization. You think he'll be good for the organization?
Yes, Cathy, yes.
Do you want him to be president?
No, I can't say that now. Look, Cathy, there are processes that guide, Cathy. Mm-hmm. You don't just come and want to be the president.
Yes, but do you think he'll make a good president? Will he have support from you as members of the party, members of branches?
No, but Cathy, isn't it, we can't undermine some other people who were there before him. There are processes, hence I'm talking of processes. But then Cathy, the men, I know the men. I've worked with men in the MK. In the EFF. EFF was that man. EFF was Floyd.
I hear you, Alfred. I don't disagree with you. I hear you, but I'm asking, good enough for him to be your president as a member of this party?
good enough to be the president of the party?
Yeah.
No, Katie. I'm saying there are processes. Not now, Katie. Not now. Maybe some times to come. But Nia is good enough to be a leader of the organization.
All right, Alfred. Let's leave it there. Alfred out in Mpumalanga. Let's take your latest news headlines. I'm back with more of your calls.
In news making headlines for this hour, 2 parallel councils of the Tabazimbi local municipality Limpopo will today hold separate council sittings as political infighting continues. For more than 2 years, the municipality has been led by 2 parallel councils led by the DA and the ANC. In other news, Gauteng ANC chairperson Panyazile Sufi said there is a lot to learn from Floyd Shivambu's departure from the EFF to the MK party. He was addressing delegates at the PEC Lekgotla, which ends today in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. And lastly, the SADC Heads of State and Government Summit that was held in Zimbabwe over the weekend has adopted a resolution that encourages member states to pay attention to the outbreak of the Mpox disease. I'll be back at 10 for SFM News. I'm Eva Chipa.
Oscar and Emmy winner Kevin Costner is John Dutton, a 6th-generation homesteader and devoted father. John controls the largest contiguous ranch in the United States, operating in a corrupt world where politicians are compromised by influential oil and lumber corporations and where land grabs make developers billions. Shifting alliances, unsolved murders, open wounds, and hard-earned respect puts Dutton's property in constant conflict with those it borders, an expanding town, an Indian reservation, and America's first national park. Channel your inner drama with Yellowstone, Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Borussia Dortmund understands the delight that comes with triumphing the opening clash of the league race. But Eintracht Frankfurt are not about dropping points this early. They want to complete their visit to Signal Iduna Park with 3 incredible points. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch the hot contest between Borussia Dortmund and Eintracht Frankfurt on Saturday, 24 August at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Good morning, Cathy. Monday Umugus. I wish Miss Goruba, MEC of Education, I can say 10 billion yadi tendera yadi jabana. I think that is a good move. So what they can do, they can take that money, the Pick and Pay ShopRite can supply the kids at school for the food. I think is a good idea for ShopRite and Pick and Pay and ShopRite supply with food from the school.
Cathy, good morning, man. Flores here from the Western Cape. Cathy, hope you had a beautiful weekend. With regards to Floyd moving and Julius remaining behind, I think it's imperative that Julius either need to change his attitude or Julius make some serious decisions regarding his political career. Otherwise, he could be irrelevant with the next election. So, yeah, this is not easy, I think, for Julius. Yeah, I think maybe Dalian Porfo will be the next one to move. Thank you. Have a good show. Bye-bye.
Good morning, SAFM and all the listeners. Good morning, Siskate. I hope you are doing well, Sisi. Siskate, I like to say this. The government of Eastern Cape must lift up the socks, put the police and the very strong police to those people who demanding the protection fees at school there. Because I saw on the news that there are the people who demanding the protection fees off to the teachers, and you know, this thing is not good. Like, serious, it's a very, very bad, like really, Sisketi. And also I want to congratulate the police to arrest this suspect there in airport, the guy who was kidnapping the business people. I like to congratulate the police who was doing the very good job. Thank you very much.
Yeah, look, thanks for those WhatsApp voice notes. Unfortunately, the issue of extortion doesn't seem to be going anywhere. If anything, it looks like it's worsening in some parts of our country, where the monies that people are demanding are only increasing. So you've got the racket groups in the community that expect payments from almost anyone, those that are targeting the business people. And then linked to it then is the high kidnappings, where in some instances, of course, we know high-profile business people or individuals are kidnapped, and and ransom is sought for their release. So it is a very, very big problem. I don't know why it is so difficult for our police officers to crack. Perhaps there's something that we need to understand around the organized nature of this kind of crime that is perpetuating it right now. I'm still taking your calls on 086 000 2032. Silo, you're in Ventersburg. Good morning.
Good morning, Sister. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Silo.
I'm well. Sister, I just have two issues that I want to quickly run to you. The first one is this 92,000 jobs that were lost in a second quarter. The report that was given, I think, somewhere last week. I'm just wanting to ask or check the accuracy of that number, Sis Cathy, about the 92,000 job loss. How is that being found or being calculated to such an extent? The reason why I'm asking, there are jobs that have been created, even as small margin as it is, but there are jobs that have been created. I will make an example. Here in Ventersburg, there is 2 truck stops that are from Sunrise, and currently they have employed 50 plus people. So, and there is another solar project here around Machabe that has employed people. I'm just wanting to understand the accuracy of this 92,000 job lost in the second quarter and all those things. How valid is it? How accurate?
Look, obviously Statistics South Africa is the one that has run the survey for years and years now, and they are the ones that would be able to provide, clarity in terms of the measures that they use. But so as far as I know, it has never been called into question before, the methodology that they use, and I haven't seen them having changed their methodology at all. And so while you might look at what is happening in your area and see that positive change in terms of job creation, it doesn't mean that that's happening wholesale across the rest of the country.
No, that I understand, because but I just wanted, because to me at the back of my mind I was like, are we talking only about the permanent government jobs that are reflected there, or including the private sector? If it is including the private sector, how do they come across to that number? How do they satisfy themselves that in a particular places, or let's figure around like this case. Maybe let's say in the Free State, they focus on the Free State district to district and try to like we are saying, maybe the method that they are using.
Yeah, look, Silo, what I will encourage you to do, perhaps to end it off, what I would encourage you to do is you need to go onto the Statistics South Africa website and go onto the quarterly labor force survey findings, and then read that actual full report. Don't read the redacted version. Read the full version of that report, because it really does outline where the data comes from. It shows you what is actually happening in different provinces. Of course, often we don't get the opportunity of going into that kind of minute detail when you're listening to the news or even to news programs like this one. So go onto the actual website, and I think a lot of your questions will be answered from them. Moscow, you're calling us from Sebokeng. Good morning.
A very good morning to you, Cathy.
Yes.
Yes, I'm your first time caller.
Yes, we've never received a call, a caller called Moscow. Welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot.
Are you fresh out of Russia, Moscow?
No, I'm yeah, but I think I'm inspired by the president, Russian president. I'm so inspired by Russia.
Okay.
The speech and everything, yes. I wish we had the very same intelligence here in our country. Yes, we would be a workable country. Yeah, Cathy, I'm commenting on the GNU.
Okay.
The GNU got to work. Yes, it's working. We just have to give it some time. I think if we can give it a couple of years, we'll see a fruitful government. You see, ANC on its own, it's clear that they couldn't deliver. For 32 years, we haven't seen anything. It's complaints over there and there, all the provinces, you see. So now, why am I saying the GNU network? You will see by the signs. Shivambo now is jumping from EFF. He's leaving EFF for MK Party, which is a very, very, very newborn party, you see. And there's a lots and lots of problems at the MK Party. Because now Msholozi has just hijacked. He's overtaken the party from the founders, and then he fired. You see, the founders of the party now, and making space for his own corrupt subordinate. And if you check back there, Shivambo was the one who saying Zuma must pay back the money. And they told him he couldn't speak, or he can't tell them anything in the parliament. But now he's the one to join him. And then now on his statement, he said that he's not promised anything. He's just leaving to change the directions of the MK party. He's just going to be a member. But now at the same time on the statement, he contradicts to say he's going to change the directions. So now, how can you say that and then you say you're not promised anything? You understand? So now, right now, as we speak, the MK party has got its own lot of problems. So these guys, they think we don't understand politics.
Yeah.
Look, here, Cathy, here in our municipalities, Beng and Mfuleni, we were given the mayors every time. There will be a mayor from somewhere. It was Simon Fukeng who came from Toto. That's Malutia Province, and had a different municipality. He was supposed to be a mayor there, not here at Enfuleni. And he came and looked at our municipality. Now the municipality spends with a lot of debt. And then now they brought for us Moerane. From where? From the other municipality. To come here and be an acting mayor here, then Putu now is a mayor. So now we decided, no, we don't want anybody from anywhere else. Now we want our own, so that we can at least say. So we have Sipokatebe right now. He's at Mfuleni. We've got Lerato. She's at FCB Bank. And then everything is going well. But now we still have those corrupt ANC members there on the ground levels, which they think they are big and they are idols. Because now they're still continuing with their corruption habits and their culture, you see. Like now, there's a big, the big project here that we're having on housing. But now we see corruption over there. There are houses sold for 40,000 when they're supposed to be given to those who are waiting in their houses. Yes. People have been waiting for their houses.
Look, I guess Moscow, as with any other organization, right, going into something new, he is going to have to do the work of making sure he gets the buy-in from the other leaders of the MK party and anybody else in the organization. I don't know if you heard the question I asked Alfred, who says he's an MK member earlier, if he thinks he's the right president for the party, and he says no, I don't. Let's not start that conversation. There are processes there, and that already tells you that it might not be as easy as just having a plan that the former president supports and implementing that plan. It's going to need buy-in.
Oh, Shivambo can be a president at MK because of now. You see, what I'll tell you, Zuma there is a one-man band. Everywhere, even when he was the president of the country, he was just a one-man band. And I'll tell you, Shivambo has been just deceived by Zuma's daughters to say, come, and then, because they got rid of the founders of the very same party, and this is their headquarters at the moment. So I don't think even this MK party thing will work.
Okay, Moscow, let's leave it there. Moscow out in Sebokeng. Johnny, you're in Polokwane. Good morning.
Morning, how are you, Suket?
I'm well, Johnny.
I'm well. I have a problem, man, with this, they maybe we might get a low expect or somebody. Why were the Libyan guys released and then the NPA dropped the charges for those guys, and I heard they were deported back to Benghazi, I think yesterday.
I don't know if they've already been deported.
To be.
Johnny, I think that they're still to be deported. I know that there is a bit of a dilemma when it comes to the deportation that is presenting itself on an international level, because there are questions about where they have to be deported to in Libya. Because there is a part of Libya that is officially recognized by South Africa, and then there's another part that isn't recognized by the international community, and that's the part of Libya that they actually come from. So yeah.
No, that I understand, but I'm worried about the processes that unfolded in South Africa. Where we suddenly heard that the NPA dropped the charges. What really happened? What is happening with our country kids? I mean, guys cannot just come here and then lie and say they're coming to study, and then they're not studying, or they are entering into military trainings, and now the NPA has dropped the charges. The guys are to be returned back. What is happening to our country? I mean, if it was another country that I know, these guys could have been pursued now, and they could be in prison now for that. What they've done. One, they've violated the migration laws of this country. They were training in a military style, whatever. They are to be deported. What is happening with South Africa? Who can come and explain to us why did the NPA drop those charges of those guys?
Johnny, I think that is a very, very important question. And I know the NPA is now saying that the Hawks are the ones handling the investigation, and they're the ones that will be looking further into it. But it just doesn't seem like a good enough answer. And why would you arrest these individuals if you didn't feel that your case against them had any prospect of success?
You see, why did they try? Why did they act as if they got a case? And then now they no. But I think there is another issue here. I had the company or the security company that was providing that training. Hello.
Yes, Johnny, I'm listening.
Yes, the security company that was providing that military training is belonging to somebody else. And then I want to check, is that somebody else being pursued? What is happening? Where is that guy who's the owner of the company that was providing the training there. We are not hearing anything about that. Was it legal what he was doing there? This company, was it doing was it legal? Are they pursuing them legally? What is happening?
Okay. Yeah, Johnny, I think all of those questions are very, very important questions, and you raise a good point that perhaps we also need to get the NPA on to just explain what exactly has happened in this matter.
Exactly. Cathy, good morning. It's Clinton here. This is a very quick one. Cathy, I must say the GNU, indeed, it is working. Particularly Minister Gayton. I like how Minister Gayton is relatable to the ordinary man on the street. The man is so humble. Humble is a humble pie. Really, unlike these ministers of decorum this, decorum that. No, I like Mr. Gayton. He is straightforward. He's easy. He's approachable. He is communicating. He's just a normal, ordinary guy, and I like it about him.
From 1936 to the future, from Ekaya, Ekasi, to Jozi and Burkan to the world, from dance and poetry to stages filled with our hopes and dreams, from SABC radio stations to cross-border triumphs, from drama, comedy and heart-pounding sport to raise our flag, from culture and spirit to the streets where talent is grown, from generation to generations and the shows that kept us entertained. So, what are you waiting for? Kumbule Kaya. SABC has always been home to our joy, stories, and Msanti's magic. Come home to SABC Plus, still home to the best of who we are.
Big ups to all the women of Africa Donga. Incredible characters in various fields. When you set your mind onto something, your winning mentality is difficult to defeat. On and off the field. Your excellence in the world of sport speaks volumes. You are the great inspiration to the nation. Happy Women's Month, courtesy of SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. It is your open line on this Monday morning. I'm still taking your calls on 086 000 2032 on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. Anonymous, you're calling from Saldanha Bay. Good morning.
Good morning, Sis Kate. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
I'm good. I'm calling from Saldanha. The reason why I'm calling is, Sis Kate, is because I've noticed that the crime here in South Africa has gotten out of control now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially the gender-based violence. Last week I received a call from my cousin. He told me one of our friend's sister committed a suicide. And then he mentioned that she was raped. Yeah, they are signs that she was raped before she committed a suicide.
Sure.
So I went there to that family because it's a family friend. I went there. When I got there, the family explained it to me what happened when I found them there. That this thing doesn't look like it. And when I got an explanation and then look at the place where she committed a suicide, no, it doesn't look like anything like a suicide. This young girl was raped by a guy that is known by the community. Everyone knows that guy, and I know even myself that guy. He raped her, and he made it look like it was a suicide. because there wasn't evidence. There wasn't evidence that one of her thigh bone was dislocated bruises between the legs, and then there was a blood, like it was a mess. And then I asked, are they said they were shoestrings. Yeah, they used shoestring. He used shoestring to hang her. You see?
Sure.
So I asked, what are the police saying about this? The guy apparently, and the guy was seen. One of the neighbors, he shared that there was something that was going on in the house, and then he went there in the house and then found that guy inside with that young kid. And then when they asked the neighbors, asking what is going on here, and then that guy said no, he didn't answer those questions, and then he left because the people that were asking there, it was ladies, though they could not handle the guy. You see.
What
so yeah, it was reported.
I'm saying what a terrible death.
Yeah.
For this young woman.
The guy was taken by the police to the police station for questioning, and then that guy, when that guy was found there, he didn't have his pants on. You see. Now they took him to the police custody for questioning, and then even they took his underwear. The police took his underwear because he forgot his underwear there. They took it, and then the guy started to deny the underwear, and then eventually he admitted that was his underwear, but she didn't rape the young girl. That guy has been released. He's not even in jail as we speak now.
Sure.
As we speak, I don't know what's going on with the law of this country.
Sure, Anonymous. Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely speechless at the details of, this rape and alleged murder that you've told us about. Yeah, I can't imagine what that family is going through. Yeah.
This thing happened last week Sunday on the 11th. Yes, last week Sunday. And then when one of the female members told me this is the third time this young girl has been raped. This is the third time. The first still unknown. The first guy who raped her is still unknown. And then the second rape, she was again raped. So only to find out one of the people that they can rape her it was her boyfriend. So the case was dismissed because there was a playful boyfriend involved.
How old was she?
Hey, she's very young. She's very young. I think she's still a teenager, somewhere maybe 16 to 18.
Oh, Anonymous, I mean, what a story, hey? Anonymous, I'm going to put you through.
But she was getting raped, and then they said, no, they were, according to the family members, they said, no, they cannot continue with the case because one of the guys was her boyfriend.
I'm going to put you through to Lebo, Anonymous, so that we can just get more details about this matter. I mean, it will be very interesting for us to speak to the family of this young girl too, just to hear from them and to hear their perspective. But yeah, my word, nothing to say after details like what Anonymous has shared. Mlungisu Muziwonke, good morning. We'll wrap it up with you for today. Hello, Mlu.
Hello.
Yes. All right. That connection, the connection to you isn't great, Mlu. Let's try again. Can you hear me loud and clear? Yes, I can hear you now. Okay. That connection to Mlungisu Muziwonke is not great today. Let's see if we can maybe bring him back up tomorrow on a better line. That's where we wrap up the conversation on the open line for this hour. Coming up in the next hour, we're looking at gender equality, particularly within the workplace. How can men advocate for gender equality. Professor Bonang Mohale will be joining us alongside Buhle Hanise of the African Women Chartered Accountants. It's 10 o'clock.
Top stories for this hour. Separate council sittings to be held for the Thabazimbi local municipality, and Mkhwebane's gratuity matter back in court today. Good morning, I'm Eva Chipa. Two parallel councils of the Thabazimbi local municipality in Limpopo will today hold separate council sittings as political infighting continues. For more than 2 years, the municipality has had two parallel councils, one led by the DA and the other by the ANC. Both council sittings are expected to discuss the decision of the Limpopo government to place the municipality under administration. Michael Makungo reports.
The two parallel councils will hold a special sitting at the same time but different venues. The DA-led coalition will hold its council sitting in the municipal council chamber, while the ANC-led coalition will hold its meeting in another venue outside the municipality. The battle over the mayor and speaker's positions is between ANC and DA councillors. Meanwhile, councillors have been given until Wednesday this week to respond on why the municipality shall not be placed under administration. Michael Makungo, SABC, Polokwane.
Gauteng ANC chairperson Panyaza Lesufi says there is a lot to learn from Floyd Shivambu's departure from the EFF to the MK party. He was addressing delegates at the PEC Lekgotla, which ends today in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. While some are celebrating the exodus in the EFF and the departure of Shivambu, Lesufi said this is a great lesson for parties to learn on how they can manage the population of young people in their leadership ranks.
We must learn what I call maintenance of generational mix. At the leadership of every political party, we must have a generational mix. These things are what is abontanga spetela. It's wrong because maskwatelana ngento zethu we collapse a movement. So the importance of generational mix has been reaffirmed by the departure of Deputy President of the EFF. That we must ensure that even when we differ, we must have those that are senior to call us to order. We must ensure that within the structural leadership of the ANC, we must not chase other people out of the movement. That is disastrous.
The High Court in Pretoria will hear former Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane's urgent application against the Public Protector's Office to have a multi-million rand gratuity paid out. Mkhwebane was impeached from office last year for misconduct and incompetence following a Section 194 parliamentary inquiry. Sibahle Mota reports.
Mkhwebane has stated in her founding affidavit that she is entitled to her gratuity despite the Office of the Public Protector believing otherwise. Mkhwebane's gratuity has been estimated to stand at 10 million rands. However, Public Protector Koleka Gcalega says in her affidavit that Mkhwebane is not entitled to the multi-million rand gratuity as she did not vacate her office but was rather removed. Mkhwebane will be represented by Advocate Dalim Mpofu, while the Office of the Public Protector will be represented by Advocate Tembeka Ncukaitobi. I am Sibahle Mota in Johannesburg.
In other news, the SADC Heads of State and Government Summit that was held in Zimbabwe over the weekend has adopted a resolution that encourages member states to pay attention to the outbreak of Mpox. This comes after Africa's Center for Disease Control declared Mpox a public health emergency. SADC Executive Secretary Elias Mkhosi says countries must stay vigilant.
Summit extended solidarity and support to member states affected by Mpox and further requested the World Health Organization, Africa CDC and partners to avail resources towards the Mpox response in the region. Summit directed the Secretariat to convene an urgent meeting of Ministers of Health to assess the impact of Mpox and facilitate coordinated regional response to control the spread of the disease.
And lastly, looking further afield, a BBC investigation has revealed that dozens of workers from around the world may have been trafficked by a small family-owned fishing firm. The fishermen came to the UK from the Philippines, Ghana, Indonesia, India and Sri Lanka to work for TN trawlers of a Nun of Scotland over a 10-year period. The BBC's Monica Whitlock explains.
The fishermen arrived in the UK to work on scallop dredges. When they went out to sea, they say, they sometimes worked 18 hours a day with inadequate food and drinking water. TN Trawlers said, we absolutely refute any allegation of modern slavery or human trafficking. It said, we always provided food and accommodation to our workers. The fishermen have never talked about their allegations in public because they thought they'd be needed as witnesses in court.
Recapping the top story for this hour, 2 parallel councils of the Thabazimbi local municipality in Limpopo will today hold separate council sittings as political infighting continues. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour for SFM News. I'm Eva Chipa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
It is alleged that the Libyans have been in the base since April.
So how long have police intelligence been aware of this facility?
To be frank with you, at this moment, it's something that also during the visit by the minister it was indicated that cannot share much on the things besides the information that was received by the intelligence structure. There were other information from members of the community.
Wow, a security camp used for military training. Why are foreign nationals being trained in security or guerrilla warfare or whatever it is in South Africa? If South Africans were in another country being trained for those purposes, my word, they would be regarded as terrorists, it would be treason, they'd probably be locked up by those countries and everything.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana, weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
It's 7 after 10 o'clock. Welcome to the second hour of the show. Coming up in this hour, we're looking at the role of men in advocating for gender equality, particularly in the workplace. I think there's a role that men play more generally in the conversation around gender equality, and that they should play in the conversation around gender equality and the empowerment of women. I think this was really at the heart of why an institution such as the United Nations also came up with that campaign, the He for She campaign. It's an acknowledgement of the fact that equality, gender equality, cannot be attained or achieved without the support of men. So coming up in this hour, we'll be in conversation with Professor Cathy Mohlahlana, who is a Chancellor at the University of the Free State and also Chairman of both the Bidvest Group Limited and SBV Services. We'll be talking about this particular conversation, and Butle Hanise of the African Women Chartered Accountants. So please do stay tuned for that conversation. We will, however, begin the hour with recapping your WhatsApp voice notes from the open line.
Good morning, Cathy. I'm worried about the adverts requirements that come with age limit. I'm very much worried because among the unemployed, it's many of them who are over the age of 35. Now, if an advert comes saying the age, they are going to focus on those who are 35 and younger, it's worrying. It's worrisome. I think the presidency must intervene in this.
Good morning, Sister Cathy. Hope you are well. I'm a holder of Lesotho Special Permit, and at the moment I'm struggling to make appointment online on VFS website so that I can submit my documents for renewal. Can you please find out who I can contact, because I've been trying since March 2024 to make online. I've been talking to the staff on VFS, I've been emailing, I've been to Hello Peter, I've been to Facebook, but it's not working. I don't get an assistant, and my work permit has expired. I need to renew it, and they are expiring like fully next year, December 2025, and I can't even apply for another permit like spousal permit, because the permit that I'm holding at the moment is not active. Can you please find out who I can contact, who can help me, so that I can be able to make appointment and submit my documents? Thank you so much.
Morning, Cathy, and welcome back. The EFF supporters and members must respect Floyd Shivambu's decision to join a MK party and accept that Floyd Shivambu has moved on politically. To political analysts who are making a misleading statement about the MK party, that the MK party is a tribal organization, they are going to eat a humble pie, because the MK party is going to dominate the political landscape of South Africa. Cathy, Sotisnyolen Mafefe Limpopo, thank you.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
Reigning champions, the Citizens, fully get it that early wins in the league serves you right when pressure kicks in.
On it goes to Foden, 2-0. The master marksman, Phil Foden. You absolute beauty.
However, the Tractor Boys believe they have what it takes to prevail in the Big Boys League.
Burns again, another opportunity. It
This is the Premier League. Catch the exciting battle between Manchester City FC and Ipswich Town FC on Saturday 24 August at 3 p.m. Live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Yeah, we can do this. It's been a long time coming. This deserves to grow. It's a great business. If they don't like it, someone else will. And fund me so I can expand. Maybe I can offer them shares. I need to retain equity for staff. It's going to be good for recruitment. Yeah.
Possible begins with that one great idea. When Telkom enables entrepreneurs to make their ingenuity a reality, we grow local economies. Telkom. Possible begins here.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day, where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy
Tune in to catch the rebirth of Muvango's new season on SABC2 every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. and experience the drama and excitement with new intriguing characters like Dr. Nonhlanhla Zimba, played by Leleti Khumalo, and of course your usual faves. It's a renaissance of new beginnings, love, secrets and betrayal. Remember, that's every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. on SABC2.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Well, as we focus then on women in our society and the different experiences that they have, we're zooming in today on gender equality in the workplace. While we have seen many women climb the corporate ladder, there is still a sentiment expressed that they are not heard or even seen as leaders in the workplace. So there are still these obstacles when it comes to accessing particularly male-dominated industries. Studies. Joining us for this conversation today and looking at the role that men can play in advancing gender equality, Professor Cathy Mohlahlana, Chancellor of the University of the Free State, Professor of Practice at the Johannesburg Business School and Chairman of both the Bidvest Group Limited and SBV Services. Professor Mohlahlana, good morning to you. Thanks for your time. Buhle Hanise is a chartered accountant and president of the African Women Chartered Accountants. Buhle, good morning.
Morning, Cathy. Morning, Tata Moha.
Prof, let me begin with you, because you, of course, are an industry leader in many ways. You've had the opportunity of serving in various capacities within corporate South Africa. And so this question around leadership is one that you have not only had to confront, but it's one that I imagine you've had to practically involve yourself with and deal with when you are in industry. The role of men in enabling gender equality in the workplace, what do you see that role as being, and what has your experience with it over the years been?
Cathy, I'm hoping that the role of men is going to be building and creating rather than tearing down and destroying. I'm believing that in modern era, our job will be to liberate, not empower women, because you can only empower up to your own level, whereas what we need is for women to be much better than men. But you see, women, like black people, are not only left on their own. Actually, they are being erased from history. Time, money, energy, and effort is spent to erase their contribution. The world knows of almost 21 female pharaohs, Hatshepsut, Cleopatra, and Nefertiti being the most famous amongst them. But of course, the most revered in this modern era is Cleopatra, both the one immortalized in Shakespeare's play and identically named predecessors. But there were also several lesser-known women pharaohs who paved the way for their more famous successors. Another example that comes to mind is that all 12 people who walked on the moon were men. But among the 400,000 people who made it possible, there were numerous unsung women, from computer engineers and mathematicians to secretaries and seamstresses. Today, as America contemplates a return to the moon with the very first woman 50 years later, there is a resolve to ensure that women are not in the background, but are instead the astronauts leading the way. Like I said, 50 years after Apollo, I think the stories of some of these women who helped put Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, for them to be better prepared and to be in the right frame of mind to make history on the moon, I think they also need to be piloted, highlighted, and celebrated. Cathy.
So, and thanks for that recognition, right? But bringing it then back home to the experience of corporate South Africa, and I listen carefully to what you're saying, that men should be part of building and creating, not tearing down, of liberating women rather than empowering women. Practically, how does that play out within the corporate space? How do we see gender inequalities manifested? And I want you to speak as somebody who, again, is even today still a leader of industry.
So the first is a full appreciation that if both hard work and enterprise lead to this inevitable outcome called wealth, then every woman in Africa should be a dollar billionaire. I think a full appreciation that 30 years into democracy, poverty still has primarily a black and feminine face. I think, lastly, Cathy, we need to say, even though women are 51% of the population, we should be restless and unhappy and dissatisfied that their representations in position of leadership, it's no more than 24%, and African women less than 4%. And yet we know that the companies, like the countries that are led by women, are much better off. They command higher multiples upon exit. They are the ones that demonstrate humanity, that they are the most profitable and the best companies to work for, and yet they are the most joyous because they are very balanced. The people who work for them feel needed and wanted. They feel free to speak their mind. So I think the role that we can play as men is to really be clear that, leadership, yes, presupposes followership. But in liberating women, we are really liberating other leaders, not other followers. There's a wonderful African adage that says the fruits of the amarula tree is not the amarula fruit, but another amarula tree. Because the candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. In fact, it gains more light. Therefore, our job as men is to kick down these corporate doors and make it possible for women just to enter. Because imagine if men are the reason that women are noticed, seen, and heard. That men are the reason why women are loved, respected, but most importantly, supported. A practical example is that, and I say this without any fear of retribution or reprisals, that where Bonang Mohale has been finally accountable, he's always left, at the very least, other black people, but mostly African women. And you see that in business leadership, South Africa, you see that at Shell, you see that at Otis, but you see it now even with the listed entities that I'm absolutely blessed with the most incredible opportunities to lead, is that those are now led by women. And let me give you just one example because you wanted to be practical. Sis Nompumelelo Tembekile Madisa has been on the board of the Beavers Group, working for them as an employee for more than 16 years before we said, no, we need to announce her as the next CEO. She's been in that job for 3 years. And that board that she now leads, the company of more than 127,000 employees, declared the biggest dividend in the history of this 38-year-old company. She was the first woman to break the barrier of the 100 billion rand revenue mark at 114.7 billion rand with 11.4 billion trading profit. And she does this with a board that is 80% black and 73% African women. That's what I call transformation. Cathy?
Thank you for that, Prof. Mohale, because I do think that it is important that as we have the conversation, we are also able to show what practically has been possible in industry. Buhle, let me bring you in here. One listens to the examples that Professor Mohale has shared, even just in where he has played a role and how he has championed the succession of women in the ranks. But of course, it is a lot harder to get these kind of outcomes than it should be.
And it shouldn't be like that, especially 30 years after democracy. We shouldn't still be saying, oh, the first black female, the first female to be a CEO of this business and all of that. But I also want to just, Cathy, touch on what Prof spoke about. I mean, I listened to him a few days ago at the DLO Women's Month Conference. He still alluded to the same comments that he made today around the likes of Umbomi and the work that he has done personally. And we are grateful for the work that you've done, Prof. And we see it, we see you, and we acknowledge that. The reality is, Cathy, unfortunately, we still have the first black female, the first female in CEO, CFO in listed entities, which is not supposedly the right thing for a population of in South Africa of 51% of it being women. I'll make a story of myself. One thing I picked up even when Prof spoke at the session that I was with him a few days ago was around how critical it is to have a succession plan, right? My story of where I am sitting as a head of business restructuring services at BDO was of exactly the work that was done 2 years prior to me taking over. From a white male, a person who started the business from scratch 30 years ago, he was very intentional. He made a decision at a strategy session 2 years prior to me becoming the head of this business to say, when I retire in 2024, I want this business to be led by an African woman. And they went out. I was comfortable sitting as a CFO of an automotive company that IDC owns, a joint venture between IDC and a bike group in China. And when they called me, I understood the call. I understood that this is where I wanted to be. This is something I wanted to be involved in to make sure that, when we talk about the role of women in corporate and financial services in all these industries, we are there and representing. But then the question then, Cathy, is what does then Buhle do? Do I have a proper succession plan that will ensure that I'm not the only person that sits as a head of this business? And next time, there's nobody else that will look like me, or even if they don't look like me, they're at least a female. So we've got a task in place, and I think that's why we had this follow-up session around to say it's not just us as women who must talk to each other. We need voices like a Prof. Bonang, like my ex-boss, who made it clear to the team, to the board, to say, guys, when I retire, this is what I want to do. And it can't be a wake up. He retired end of March this year. He didn't just wake up on the 1st of March. He said, oh my goodness, I'm retiring. Who's going to take over? He made a concerted effort to ensure that there's a qualified person who's got the right experience, who can lead this team to the next level. And I'm very clear with the team that this is going to be a youth-led team because I want to ensure that there's proper succession plan in place. Yeah.
Buhle, how would you say that we move beyond sort of the piecemeal exercise? And of course, every appointment where a woman is given that opportunity, right, is welcomed, is celebrated. But often what you see in corporate too is that once they've appointed the woman as the CEO, they feel, okay, we've done what we needed to do now. We can move on, right? Meanwhile, when you take a look at the structure of the organizations, nothing fundamentally is changing, at least where transformation is concerned.
Sure. Look, I think the reality is that you need to have leaders who are ethical, leaders who understand the mandate, leaders who are not going to entertain just sitting there by themselves. I have, Cathy, been invited to sit on boards where you could see that it was a tick box exercise. They never in their wildest dreams expected that we're bringing this youngster I mean, I started sitting on boards in my early 30s. This youngster who's going to have a contribution to the board, or this youngster who will have a contribution as an executive. And the mindset that we need to have as young women, especially African women, is to understand that when you are given this opportunity, it shouldn't be a piecemeal exercise. You are given this opportunity to make a change. And that's why I am also passionate, Cathy, about the work that we do at the African Women Chartered Accountants, where we support a young aspiring CA all the way to leadership, so that we can give them the tools to understand that when you get into these roles, you don't just sit there and you are just ticking the box. I've had to step down on boards. I have to leave organizations because a person invited me to sit at the table. And it's a good and a right table, but they never in the wildest dreams thought that Ubuhle will have a contribution. They thought Ubuhle will sit there and just tick the box.
All right.
Scenario, a female that's joined. We meet the BE codes. We now a level. We've upgraded a level up when it comes to our BE certificates and all of that. So we need to encourage our youngsters and all those women that get these opportunities to have a voice.
All right.
To understand voice matters.
We're going to continue this conversation in a moment. It's time for the latest news headlines.
Making headlines for this hour, the South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, has urged aggrieved applicants whose disability applications have been rejected to follow legislative processes of appealing. The agency has assured all applicants that contracted medical practitioners receive training before they start any disability-related assessment. In other news, 2 parallel councils of the Thabazimbi local municipality in Limpopo will today hold separate council sittings as political infighting continues. And lastly, Free State Umbrella Fire Protection Association say the failed fires that have been contained on the N1 stretch near Tabanchu. On Sunday, some parts were damaged, resulting to animal loss. I'll be back at 11 for SFM News. I'm Eva Chipa.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 17 rand 78 to the dollar, 23 rand 05 to the pound, and 19 rand 63 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mixed at the closing bell. The JSE has extended gains in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are mainly higher this hour. Gold is trading at $2,503, platinum $953 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $79.09 a barrel.
It's Elimination Week on the Tastemaster Junior. This Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2 as the bottom 6 bake to stay in the competition. It's all about desserts as the contestants recreate their versions of a family favorite, warm and comforting pudding. But will it be enough to impress the judges and earn them a spot in the next round? That's the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday at 7. Repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2.
18 teams are back on the hunting ground. No one wants a loss or a draw. They are all searching for maximum points in every encounter. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Do not miss out on the 2024-2025 Bundesliga season. Catch the action live on Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hashtag SFM Talking Point.
You're listening to The Talking Point. We continue the conversation looking at gender equality in the workplace and the role of men in advocating for gender equality. Professor Bonang Mohale is one of our guests alongside Buhle Hanise. Prof, let me come back to you. You of course detailed the research in terms of companies that have women leaders, how they perform better, have greater outputs, etc., etc. Do you think that this research is meaningful for industry? Because one would say, in spite of the evidence, there still seems to be a perception that women's leadership capabilities are questionable, that women can't fully be trusted with leading industries at certain levels.
Cathy, I think the proof of the pudding is the fact that of the 198 countries that were both affected and infected by the COVID-19 virus, 8 of them dealt better with this pandemic than all others put together. And all 8 had women as the head of state. New Zealand and its 5 million people, Angela Merkel of Germany, and all the Nordic and Scandinavian countries that were led by women. So I think the evidence is absolutely there. We don't need to prove anything more. But also we know, Cathy, that when you put a smartphone in the hands of a woman, not only does the nutrition, education, and health of their own children improve, but of the entire society and community from which they come. I think what we need to do is to support women and not stand in their way. You know, Cathy, it was the law that black slaves could only play the piano with black keys and not white keys. And maybe a lot of us didn't know that the Amazing Grace was composed not only with the black keys, but with 5 of those black keys. Today's sharing inside Carnegie Hall, the gospel singer Wintley Phipps delivered perhaps the most moving John Newton's Amazing Grace ever recorded. And in doing so, he's saying it doesn't matter whether you are a woman or you are black. Once given an opportunity, grab it with both arms, knowing that you're carrying on your shoulders the fate of the entire generation. Let me end, Cathy, by saying, when you are fortunate enough to occupy spaces that most of our people don't, there are only 2 things that one can do, Cathy. You can continue to be celebrated, palleted, and highlighted as the first and only, on the one hand. On the other, you could kick down those doors and bring people that don't look like you. Some of us have chosen quite intentionally, deliberately, purposefully to ensure that wherever we are, and it doesn't matter, we bring in people that look like us. And I think history is replete with those examples. I was a chair as the group CEO and chairman, and I left an exco of 5 amazing, good quality human beings led by Utatu Hlonipizwe, Justice Mtolo, but Me Barbara Makubedu was the CFO, Me Tabile Mulukume was the head of legal, and Prithni Naidu, human capital. And similarly, at Business Leadership South Africa, like I said, at Otis, when you go down and you go back into my history, I'm truly blessed that I've been able to be in a position where I was able to do this, because I know it's not easy. And I know that it is indeed difficult. Here's the last one from me, Cathy, just to sum it up. You know, Harry Tubman is a slave abolitionist. And she says, I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew that they were slaves. How many of our own black people and how many of our women, when they have an opportunity to sit in these spaces and we are going to elections or we have an opportunity to appoint, it is black people or women themselves who then say, if the chairman is a black person or a woman, then the CEO must be a white man or a man. When we have 370 years of colonialism to catch up with, 98 years of separate development, but 48 years of institutionalized apartheid, and we can even learn from how the Afrikaners themselves empowered their own and eliminated and tackled the poor Afrikaner problem that in 1972 was totally and absolutely obliterated. And they didn't do that by accident. It was intentional. Cathy?
What do you find is the greatest barrier or hindrance to gender transformation in the workplace?
Because most CEOs pay platitudes to gender equality and pay parity when they could go to the HR department the next day and say, print out what we are paying women versus men for work of equal value, and then they put a plan for their board's approval, even if it takes 100 years. But they find it easy to stand on public platforms and talk about it. Imagine, Cathy, when business could pay black women-owned businesses in 30 days. We are beginning to measure those that are paying in 7 days, because whatever you lose out as interest in those 30 days, you more than make up for it in the BE recognition and points when you put your own BE score. Imagine when we could not talk about it, but actually deliver social justice. Imagine if we, as CEOs, deliver transformation. And I'll give you an example that, Shell has 750 service stations. Only 16% of them were owned by black people, less than 1% by African women. Now, you don't need a conference. You make a plan and you go seeking out these African women, because African women, by definition, are business people, because they look after our homes, our households, our budgets, our children, and they are able to juggle 1,001 things amongst 2-3 kids and the family. Who goes to a sport, who needs to be collected at what time. I think we need to trust them with running the country. And if we did, the world will be a much more peaceful place. Cathy.
Buhle, just the lack of will is perhaps something that we have to acknowledge. And this is probably then why we need men who can actively be part of advocating for gender equality, because the example that Prof. Mohlahlana has shared is so true. Some things don't need a conference, right? They don't need another conference. They don't need more research, because the individuals that are sitting with the power to make those decisions, to change them overnight, simply continue to choose to not do that. So it says that the problem that we face perhaps is a bigger problem and maybe more innate in individuals than what we choose to give it credit for.
Sure, Cathy, that's a tough one, because I think lack of will and probably, having no intentionality about changing the narrative, because in reality we've been talking about this for a good number of years. This is not something new. As you're sitting as a leader in that big boardroom, you can see that transformation is required in your business. You've got your executive of human resources. You've got a committee, REMCO, your remuneration committee. It's chaired by somebody. You have to have those mandates being given to those specific individuals to ensure that the transformation is done, and it's done properly. You need to have that intentionality as a leader, that you want to be able to have a balanced boardroom, a balanced room where you have women who are always known to be nurturers. Prof just alluded to the fact that women are known to be, you can give the 10 rand to a man and you can give a 10 rand to a woman. You'll see how they will use that amount differently and how it will empower others around them. Women are known to be nurturers by their nature, by the mere fact that this person gives birth to another person. They know what is important to ensure that livelihoods are well taken care of, and that should also translate when they're sitting in those boardrooms, in their leaders, in their areas of expertise. So I think for me it's critical that we have that will and not have the lack of the will. Instead, being very much intentional about making those necessary changes within our boardrooms. So, in all honesty, Cathy, having the discussions with people like Prof, who have made the changes that were required, should be a lesson learned for people that are listening in today, that know very well, deep down in their hearts, they've got eyes. They can see that their businesses need the transformation that's required.
Mzondile, you're calling us from the Eastern Cape. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Hey, this thing. Okay, let me start here first. I'm wondering who is your actual audience for this conversation, because this seems to be first a structural economic issue of transformation of whites and blacks, or whites to blacks, before it becomes a gender issue. Let me explain why. Sorry, why I think so. Majority of the companies are actually owned by whites. The wife to that white male is not a worker. She's not working. She's at home, because the fact that that man is at that level gave the power and the liberty for the woman not necessarily to be at home. Sorry, to be at work, but to be at home. Meaning the pressure that white man is feeling to create a transformatory environment where women are empowered is very limited. Secondly, I think we should, your conversation seems to be talking more about the people at the top, but I think we need to firstly collect data that tells us, that break each and every sector down. So if we are saying mining, we start at the bottom. What does gender equity look like from the bottom upwards? Because what we are needing here actually is a structural approach to gender equity and gender empowerment. So I'm saying at the end of the day, I think we need a bottom-up system as far as this is concerned. And my second last point, Katie, I repeat this. This seems to be the need to transform industry on behalf of black women. But the decision makers in those industries are not black males. They are in the majority white males. The question is then how to address that, which tells me that parallel to that conversation, a secondary conversation, which is as primary, is how do we enable blacks to build businesses where they themselves can champion this instead of being in the need for white companies to be transformed, as much as that needs to be the case. So what I'm saying is that the cultural pressure point, as far as this is concerned, seems to be different between whites and blacks. Blacks have pursued transformation because of our history. White women, if you were to interview them, I'm not saying they don't. I don't want to sound stereotypical, but majority of those white women actually would rather not be at work and be at home if the husband is able to take care of them. So, and then last point, Katie, this is very important. I handle investments in the agricultural sector. What you find in the agricultural sector, majority of emerging farmers are black females, and majority of white commercial farmers are white males. That is already telling you that there's a cultural issue when it comes to some of these sectors. And hence I'm saying we need a bottom-up approach.
All right, Mzondile, thank you. Thank you so much for that. I think there are perhaps two things that Mzondile has sort of raised that I want to pick up on. It's the issue of support, that once people have been elected into these positions, what kind of support is needed for them in order for them to be able to succeed? Because yes, there very much is a perception of strings being pulled from somewhere in the back, right? So it almost becomes a glorified front, as it were. On the other hand, of course, there's the conversation that, when you have these leaders, you must surround them with the right kind of support. And as well-meaning as it is, Buhle, sometimes I also don't like it, because it creates this impression that now this person needs a lot more support than the person that came in before them. Almost like
as if they're not capable.
Yes, almost like they're not up to the task of the job. So, and like I said, it's there's good intent behind it, but I'm not so sure about it anymore. You as a woman, leading industry, perhaps you can weigh in here, Buhle.
Sure, yeah, that's a tough one, because in reality, you are raising a good point. It's not that the person is not capable of the role that they're taking on, but they do need the support. What we talk about, some of the programs that we run, for instance, at the African Women Chartered Accountants at the leadership level, is to ensure that the person has a coach, a person has a sponsor within the organization, whether it's the chairman of the board, the person has a mentor or mentors that support and give them the necessary skills and that comfort that, I'm not here by myself. And Cathy, that's the reality, is that even if you have a good number of years in that industry, you are the right person. Without that necessary support, it's going to be a lonely journey, because, as I said to you, we still have the very first person being the CEO of this business and all of that. So that means you're literally coming in there all by yourself. You're the one that needs to be changing, moving those chairs, making sure that there's enough space for another woman to come in. It doesn't matter what capacity they come in. So it's always important to ask that question: what kind of support does this person have? And that support is critical to be able to take your role to the next level. As Mzwandile said, talking about that bottoms up approach, how do you ensure those young people that are still doing their internships, that are still doing their articles, that are still at lower management, get to senior management? Do you have enough processes in place so that you don't feel this lonely journey? You know that there's somebody that's coming up behind you. I spoke about succession planning earlier on as well. So you always constantly have to have juggling all these balls all together at once, but to be able to ensure that you don't feel that you are all by yourself, ensure that you've got the right kind of support. And now, for me personally, that has helped me. I've got both my senior leaders, my CEO at BDO, Ubonga, and my direct report, Tuto, whom I know are my serious sponsors within the firm. Outside of that, I've got my big sisters that form part of the African Women Chartered Accountants that I know I can call upon at any day. I've got a group of women, I call them the Matrix, different industries, but they are leaders in their own spheres. So they're able to assist me with different issues or things that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. You can't run this or walk this journey alone. You have to have your support structure in place, and within the organization, make sure that you know that if for certain things you know who you can rely on, and then you know that they will deliver on the work that needs to be done. Because this road can be a lonely ride, and without the necessary people around you and people that can actually help you, you are not going to make it. So it is important to have all those tools implemented as soon as possible as you get into those leadership roles. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Butle. I want to bring in some of the other responses from our listeners.
Cathy, morning man. Flores here from the Western Cape. Cathy, for the past 30 years in my working careers, there was always a woman in charge of my departments, and let me tell you, it has helped shape me, be in touch with my femininity, and also understand the way women operate and how successful they really are. However, let's not be naive. Women's biggest threats are women themselves when it comes to work, a place and promotions and all that. So please, that needs to be noted. Have a great job. Bye-bye.
Dumelang, Cathy. Ketepo from the Free State. For me, it's all the same. You put a woman CEO, woman supervisor, woman manager, it's all the same. Ulibala, the people at the bottom, the women at the bottom, like the security guard woman, the cleaner woman, the receptionist, the clerk, the admin, all the other women below her, wabalibal. She's on top there drinking tea, lemahwama. So what's one? It's better for her. It's not better for the other women in the organization. Thank you, Cathy.
Yeah, thanks for that feedback, and often that does become the other challenge. Prof. Mohlahlana, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yes, absolutely, Cathy. I love Mzwandile. I think he's quite profound. I think in the final analysis, Cathy, you see, if you've been advantaged for 400 years, you've been eating well for 400 years, you've been running businesses for 400 years, and you have gone to school for 400 years, you are likely to support meritocracy, or you will talk about non-racialism rather than transformation, because you know that when the job specs are written, they'll be written for you. Only you can qualify. 2, the solution is to build our own businesses and hire our own children, because it is madness to continue to make babies and then send them to a different neighborhood for them to go down on their knees and ask somebody else for a job. Lastly, Cathy, isn't it amazing that 30 years into democracy, the people that have made the most amount of money from the liberation of black people and women are the 3 communities: Jewish, Afrikaners, and Muslims. 1, because they've got capital. But of the 10 secrets that we can learn from them in the interest of time, they do 3 things particularly well. They sit together around the table as a family and as a community and talk about how to make money. Number 2, they buy from each other and one another's businesses. Lastly, they invest in and refer business to each other and one another. And if you look at our biggest failure as a people with great natural endowment, is the fact that, especially in agriculture, agriculture is 12% of our GDP, and that's where the land reform has failed. Of all the 400 ministries, it's the one that has the smallest budget. It doesn't even have a permanent judge. Women are the majority that till the field, are the least in terms of ownership. I think if we're to just rectify that, because land is the primary means of production. Lastly, Cathy, when we talk about support, there's also another issue that we shouldn't be happy about. Whenever you see a black person and a woman, even if they've got PhD, even if they've been MDs for 20 years, you just want to train them and they never graduate. Black women and black people don't need more training. They need more access to opportunities. They need us to believe in them, because it's our job to represent those without a voice, so that we release better humans, we deepen understanding, so that all of us can graduate from humankind to being kind humans. And
that perhaps is at the crux of the issue, Buhle, is that these opportunities are simply not being opened up to women. And that is what creates the inequality that we see in the workplace. Although it might not be overt, but certainly it is there in terms of who ultimately gets those positions.
Sure, that's very true. I mean, we need to open those opportunities up for women to take up the space. We can't still be discussing this thing 30 years later. You know, we can't have our youngsters. I mean, I've got a 9-year-old daughter. I can't have my child experiencing the same things that my mom experienced and I experienced. There has to be a change in the narrative. And in my mind, talking about what Mzwandile spoke about, that we should encourage Black people to own their own business, that's very true. I think also it's important that we introduce business studies early on in our curriculums, in our schools. Entrepreneurship should form part and parcel of your other studies. You shouldn't just be told about
or understand what entrepreneurship is all about later on in life. And I'm sure, Cathy, you know how it's been. Almost all of us as young, as African people, as Mohlahlana said earlier on, we've always been taught how to make businesses. We were early on taught how to sell sweets at school. Your mom would bake amagwenya and sell them somewhere and all of that. We know how to run businesses. We obviously just need to be equipped enough to run profitable businesses so that you don't end up in a space where I have to turn around your distressed business, you know. So there's quite a lot of opportunities that are there, but we must be open-minded and we must be given the opportunity to sit at the right tables.
Wutle Hanise, let me thank you for your time. She's president of the African Women Chartered Accountants, and Professor Bonang Mohale, the chairman of the Bidvest Group Limited and SBV Services. It's 11 o'clock.
Top stories for this hour. ABSA CEO to go on early retirement, and rejected SASSA applicants urged to follow processes to appeal applications. Good morning, I'm Eva Chipa. ABSA Group has announced that its CEO, Are Reitenbach, will be going on early retirement from the 15th of April 2025. He'll cease to be Group CEO and Executive Director of the ABSA Group and ABSA Bank from the 15th of October before resuming a 6-month contractual notice period, which will be served as garden leave. The board has thanked him for his contribution to the group over a career that has spanned over 27 years with the organization. Naledi Ngcobo reports.
The ABSA Group has further announced the appointment of Charles Rousson as interim CEO of the ABSA Group and ABSA Bank, effective from the 15th of October 2024. Rousson joined ABSA Capital in 2006 as Chief Financial Officer and has held numerous senior roles in the group, including his current role as Chief Executive of ABSA's Corporate and Investment Bank, as well as Group Executive Committee member. Naledi Ngcobo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, has urged aggrieved applicants whose disability applications have been rejected to follow legislative processes of appealing. The agency has assured all applicants that contracted medical practitioners receive training before they start any disability-related assessment. SASSA spokesperson Paseka Letsatsi.
In one area, I won't mention the place, would have experienced some years back that majority of people there suddenly qualified for disability grant, only to find out when we made the investigations that it was just a collaboration or an engagement which is illegal with the doctor. So hence the organization took a decision that we need to train these doctors properly. They need to understand the legislative framework and then make an assessment properly. But we are saying people, if they are aggrieved, they've got the leeway to make sure that they approach proper channels so that their matter can be resolved and be treated fairly.
Two parallel councils of the Thabazimbi local municipality Limpopo will today hold separate council sittings as political infighting continues. For more than 2 years, the municipality has had two parallel councils, one led by the DA and the other by the ANC. Both council sittings are expected to discuss the decision of the Limpopo government to place the municipality under administration. Michael Makungo reports.
The two parallel councils will hold special sitting at the same time but different venues. The DA-led coalition will hold its council sitting in the municipal council chamber, while the ANC-led coalition will hold its meeting in another venue outside the municipality. The battle over the mayor and the speaker's positions is between ANC and DA councillors. Meanwhile, councillors have been given until Wednesday this week to respond on why the municipality shall not be placed under administration. Michael Makungo, SABC, Polokwane.
In other news, police in the Western Cape are investigating a shooting incident that has left a 14-year-old girl in critical condition at Valhalla Park near Bishop Lavis on the Cape Flats. Police spokesperson Joseph Swartboy says reports suggest that unknown gunmen entered an informal settlement in Valhalla Park at the weekend and fired numerous shots.
A 14-year-old girl who sustained a gunshot wound was transported to a nearby hospital for medical treatment in a critical condition. The unknown suspects fled the scene and they are yet to be arrested. The motive for this attack is now the subject of an ongoing police investigation. An appeal is hereby made to anyone who can shed light on the circumstances surrounding this incident to please call Crime Stop on 08600 10111.
2 suspects are set to appear before the Mohlahlana Magistrate Court in Limpopo for stealing 150 goats. Police spokesperson Malesela Letwaba says the suspects were arrested after a tip-off.
About 150 goats were at the grazing land when the suspects drove them to a secluded area. Acting on a tip-off, Sinobarona police conducted a tactical operation and found the suspects with 33 of the goats tied up and ready for transportation. The goats were returned to their lawful owner.
And lastly, Free State Umbrella Fire Protection Association say the fault fires that have been contained on the N1 stretch near Tabanchu and Verkeeldevlei. On Sunday, some parts were damaged, resulting in animal loss. Authorities, however, continue to monitor the situation. Recapping the top story for this hour, Absa Group has announced that its CEO, R.A. Reitenbach, will be going on early retirement from the 15th of April 2025. Uzile Saku will be back at the bottom of the hour. For SFM News, good morning, I'm Eva Chipa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
Everyone is just as important as you are. Stop gender-based violence. Treat others the way you want to be treated. No one deserves any form of violence. Report gender-based violence. Contact Lifeline South Africa toll-free number on your mobile phone. Call or WhatsApp 0800 150 150. That's 0800 150 150. Lifeline South Africa. Mental and emotional health for all. This is an SABC supported initiative.
Big ups to all the women of Africa Dzonga. Incredible characters in various fields. When you set your mind onto something, your winning mentality is difficult to defeat. On and off the field. Your excellence in the world of sport speaks volumes. You are the great inspiration to the nation. Happy Women's Month, courtesy of SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
It's Elimination Week on the Tastemaster Junior, this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2 as the bottom 6 bake to stay in the competition. It's all about desserts as the contestants recreate their versions of a family favorite, warm and comforting pudding. But will it be enough to impress the judges and earn them a spot in the next round? That's the Tastemaster Junior, this Tuesday at 7. Repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
Oh, this is close! Sabine and the South Africans finally get a medal with the silver, and at last, Akani Sabine is an Olympic medalist. I'm really pleased for Sabine.
Everyone has been wishing for a medal for me, and I've got my medal now. I'm really happy with getting the medal.
For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. It's 8 after 11 o'clock. Welcome to the final hour of the show. Yeah, one certainly gets a sense after the conversation we've had in the previous hour that the ideals of equality in the workplace, including gender equality, that those are nothing less than just ideals if people are not willing to take the steps that are going to make that kind of environment possible. And it's clear that there simply is just no will. We don't have the will to do it. We don't have the will to do it, and so it suggests that those that are in positions of authority today, who are leading organizations that are unequal, prefer it to be that way. Why? Because they do nothing different with the power that they have, the agency that they have to change the situation. And perhaps that really becomes the reflection of the problem we face as a society more broadly, that we might talk about these inequalities, but is there an actual will to change it? Our final conversation for today, where we're looking at the human rights abuses, alleged human rights abuses in Zimbabwe, and the role of SADC. Over the weekend, Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa commending the people of his country for not bowing to pressure, calling on them to boycott the SADC summit that's currently underway in Harare. There has been fierce criticism against member states for ignoring the plight of many pro-democracy activists, which have been reportedly arrested and detained in the days leading up to the particular summit. Let's invite onto the show now for this conversation Promise Mkhwananzi, who is the spokesperson for the Citizens Coalition for Change. Promise, good morning. Good morning, Promise.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. And Dr. Ross Harbour is Director of Research and Programs at Good Governance Africa. Ross, good morning.
Morning, Cathy.
So, Promise, I want us to begin just with setting
You couldn't go through WhatsApp.
Hello, Promise? All right. I don't know what's happening to Promise on the line there, but we seem to have...
I can hear you.
Okay, all right. Okay, Promise, I'm going to then just ask my question to you. When one reads of the atmosphere, the environment in Harare, in the lead up to this SADC summit, of course, a lot of preparation by the Mnangagwa government when it comes to hosting the event. A lot of money has been spent on upgrading roads and whatever infrastructure was needed to ensure that a conference or a summit of this nature would be successful. How much of an emphasis has there been on why SADC has even chosen to hold the summit in Harare?
Well, from my understanding, the summit is routine and rotational, so it was the turn of Zimbabwe anyway to host that summit. And indeed, under normal circumstances, we must be proud that the summit is conducted in Zimbabwe. But unfortunately, we're not dealing with normal circumstances, as you have already stated. And these are not allegations, these are facts that several hundreds of human rights promoters are in prison. They are detained, and they were detained in the lead up to, during, and they remain in prison even after the summit.
Why have some of them been arrested? What are the charges that they are facing?
Well, the charges are obviously frivolous and unfounded. The main reason for the arrest were political reasons. Mr. Mnangagwa feared that human rights defenders and activists would conduct peaceful protests in the presence of SADC leaders, in particular to complain about the fact that Zimbabwe has a pending damning report on its electoral process that was conducted in 2023. And people were saying, citizens were saying, we need SADC to first deal with the issue of the problematic election before they can come and endorse Mr. Mnangagwa as the SADC chairman, because his endorsement as SADC chairman does not only have implications in Zimbabwe, but also has far-reaching implications in the region in terms of the region's attitude towards free and fair, credible elections.
Ross, this could well be just a routine summit of SADC. Ill-advised for it to take place in Zimbabwe when we know what SADC's own report, perhaps to add to what Promise has said, own report about the elections in that country have said?
Yeah, Cathy, so I think it's fair to locate this conversation in a broader context, and that is that unfortunately SADC has a history of not standing up to those who have abused power within the region, and hence allegations that SADC is essentially an old boys club, and so it's difficult to hone in on one particular misdemeanor to say why the summit should or shouldn't be hosted in Zimbabwe. The fact that SADC did not take action against the Mnangagwa regime in light of failed elections in 2023 is just one among a litany of objectionable behavior. And if one were to look further afield, it would be difficult to find a country within SADC that wasn't guilty of suppressing the opposition in one form or another. And of course, this is seriously problematic in our context. The SADC Treaty enshrines commitment to human rights, and locking away those who are legitimately objecting to the abuse of executive power is hardly a representation of respect for those human rights. So it's a great pity that SADC has essentially become this meeting of those who congratulate one another for things that are hardly achievements and don't talk apparently about the very serious violations of human rights that are going on both in Zimbabwe and in Tanzania and in Eswatini, to name but a few.
What does this do then for the credibility of the regional body, Ross? How seriously can it be taken, and will it be taken then in future, continuing on this trajectory?
Yeah, Cathy, unfortunately the organisation is not taken particularly seriously because of the dynamics I've just mentioned, and it continues to lose credibility. If you read the communique from this particular summit, you'll see that it mentions a few things here and there that are relatively good things, like, for instance, a commitment to smart industrialization and fostering regional cooperation on trade. Those kind of things, of course, are laudable and necessary. However, those things remain relatively meaningless if the body is not actually going to hold its members to account. And if it cannot, on the back of that, ensure that its member states and those who act in opposition to repression and abuse can be taken seriously. Those advocating for human rights and against abuse need to have faith in both the organ and the summit to be able to actually hold its member states to account. And so that means, for instance, that when Zimbabwe has a highly flawed election, that the members of the summit do actually hold the Mnangagwa regime to account, which it has yet to do. And so, unfortunately, it does mean that the credibility of the organisation continues to deteriorate. I think it's fair to say that it's been deteriorating for some time, but certainly any observers looking at the most recent communique would have to say, look, of course, there are conversations that happen behind closed doors that won't be communicated in a communique, but by and large, it doesn't seem as if there's any decisive action against those who abuse power, and detaining those who do object in advance of the summit it's terrible for the people concerned, but it's also an expression of a laughable regime. I don't know how it expects to be taken seriously, and it's high time that citizens started calling it out, and that, in the absence of other countries not being able to strengthen the opposition movement in Zimbabwe, which operates under terrible conditions, as Promise will tell you, we're up against it.
Rejoice Ngwenya is a Zimbabwean-based political analyst, also part of this conversation. Rejoice, good morning.
Yebo.
I want you perhaps to weigh in again. Just hi, Rejoice. All right. I think we're experiencing a bit of a. I think we're experiencing rather a delay on that line to Rejoice. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm back with our guests after this.
20 outfits of the Premier League are back on the battlefield for another spectacular season, with ambitions to play the world's most competitive and compelling football.
Rodri! City 3! West Ham 1!
This is the massive fight for the ultimate glory.
I say no, is he going to try and beat him from inside his own half? Oh, Moises Caicedo! I can't believe it! What a way to score your first Chelsea goal!
Experience the 2024-2025 Premier League season on Saturdays at 3 p.m. live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
A brilliant silver for Johan van Dijk.
The plan was to win a medal. That was the goal. So I'm just so grateful and thankful that everything went as it should. For me, it's to be an inspiration to all the younger girls in South Africa. There's so much power and passion. I think our South African women really have a lot of resilience.
For the love of the game.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day, where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. We're looking at the situation in Zimbabwe, in particular the SADC hosting its summit there, and in the lead up to that particular summit, the arrests of pro-democracy activists and how, the call for a boycott, at least of this particular summit, have been ignored. Promise Mkwanazi is the spokesperson for the Citizens Coalition for Change. Rejoice Ngwenya is a Zimbabwean-based political analyst, and Dr. Ross Harvey, Director of Research and Programs at Good Governance Africa. So, Rejoice, I was just giving you an opportunity to weigh in on this conversation, and in particular, when we look at the arrests that Promise has been speaking about of the pro-democracy activists taking place in the run-up to the summit, it doesn't seem at all to have had an impact on the running of the summit. It seems like those that are part of the summit have not even paid attention to the noise that has been happening.
Cathy, it's sad to say that SADC has turned out to be a humongous failure. When I think back to the days of the frontline states, Cathy, the kind of unity, the kind of, mission that was driving these Southern African countries to liberate South Africa. I'm just wondering why all this, this momentum is dissipated. SADC was formed basically to safeguard the democratic rights of Southern Africans. And I don't want to be saying this, Cathy, but I feel as if that, Zimbabweans have been sacrificed, and we are now dealing with a body that is almost like controlled by mafia and gangsters. And it's very, very unfair. It's unfortunate that SADC has not been able to stand up to its merit. And I think it definitely, my strong feeling, Kath, is that this body has to be dissolved. It has failed to live up to expectations.
if one got the sense that indeed the SADC leaders themselves see this situation as you have described it, Rejoice, there would be an expectation that in the platforms that are obviously shared during the summit, that there would be some kind of reference to the challenges that Zimbabwe is facing and the need to address them. I haven't seen any so far. So what does that mean for Zimbabweans today, and what do you think it also means for SADC as an organization?
Well, what it basically means for Zimbabwe is that we have gone way past the era where we have to trust SADC to do anything about Zimbabwe. Not just Zimbabwe, even if you look at the other, fundamentals that they've been talking about of technology, of development, of education, of all that, those things are not going to, I don't even think that they're going to be able to achieve one third of those things because they are failing to do a basic thing. Peer review mechanism for Zimbabweans. Let's not even consider any time in the future where we are going to look forward to SADC to support our freedom movement. But then again, it's unfortunate really that SADC has compromised itself, and the fact that the president of Zambia stayed away, it means that there must have been some kind of background discussion about whether or not Zimbabwe's electoral crisis would be on the agenda. But the fact that it was Angola possibly turned down that agenda item. So already it means that we are dealing with a totally ineffectual, dysfunctional and very crooked organization called SADC.
Promise, every struggle, and if we look at even just the liberation struggles on the continent, I think it was Rejoice that made reference to the frontline states, and perhaps that in and of itself could provide a perspective in terms of why we see leaders on the region coalesce around each other in the way that they do. But every struggle requires solidarity. What does this then mean for those activists who are in Zimbabwe who need support from elsewhere in the world in order to continue with their fight?
Well, absolutely. Just like Rejoice and the Professor Ross have already stated, SADC is no longer a credible institution. And so is its solidarity. It is not and has failed to offer solidarity to the people of Zimbabwe. And we are saying that as SADC continues to lose relevance, we must seriously consider people-to-people solidarity. We want to see the people of Lesotho, the people of Eswatini, the people of Angola giving solidarity to the people of Zimbabwe and vice versa. And I think that is the most powerful solidarity, and which solidarity is the same that gave SADC during the frontline states that Rejoice has mentioned, the credibility that it had, because it was supporting the people. It was supporting the people and being part and parcel of the people-to-people solidarity as the peoples of Southern Africa fought for the liberation and the emancipation of their respective countries. So we must, as a people, begin to say that we must consider and explore options of direct people-to-people solidarity. And secondly, we must consider coming up with alternative regional blocks that will counter the SADC and fill in the gap that SADC has left.
Ross, is that even possible right now? Coming up with a counter organization, in order for that organization, of course, to be an organ of statute recognized by these different governments, it would need their approval.
Sorry, Cathy, I missed the question at the end.
So my question is it possible, as Promise is suggesting, to come up with a counter organization to SADC in the region that could be more effective?
Yeah, Cathy, I think it is necessary to think about, especially given the need for opposition parties and civil society to develop solidarity. If you consider how difficult it was, for instance, for the opposition in Zambia to win the elections in 2021, they could have done with a lot more support, and in fact, the Hichilema regime essentially is alone in SADC in advocating against human rights abuses in its neighboring countries, and in fact, that's partly because it's one of the few governments in power now that is not a liberation movement. Unfortunately, our liberation movements have been extremely disappointing in their inability to show decisive leadership and to call one another out for human rights abuses and repression of power. I do think it is necessary for an organization to begin that does provide support, useful support to opposition movements and civil society, especially given that those are the two arenas, if you like, in which incumbent regimes have been particularly adept at destroying. Those with incumbency power are unfortunately able to use the apparatus of state to not only co-opt the judiciary, break down parliament, but actually also to infiltrate the opposition and civil society under fancy-sounding legislation. So yes, in short, I agree that a new organization is necessary, but it will require significant resources and it will require significant collective action, which is difficult to come by in the face of repression.
All right, we're going to continue this conversation shortly. It's time for your latest headlines.
Good morning, I am Utile Saku with your news headlines. A teenager has been charged with the murder of 16-year-old Devin Inel, who was killed at the Overberg High School in Caledon in the Western Cape. ABSA Group has announced that its CEO, Ari Rautenbach, will be going on early retirement from the 15th of April next year. Rautenbach will cease to be Group CEO and Executive Director of the ABSA Group and ABSA Bank from the 15th of October before resuming a 6-month contractual notice period, which will be served as garden leave. And there's been an altercation between the Chinese and Philippine Coast Guards in the disputed South China Sea, where tensions are running high. Details at 12 o'clock.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, we continue the conversation on The Talking Point. Rejoice, this idea of a new body, given the time, the resources that it will take, is that the best solution to a non-effective SADC?
Well, I don't think that, Cathy, really, to be honest, there is a need for reinventing the wheel because the investors of SADC are the citizens of Southern Africa. We have invested our time and our emotions and everything that we can in this body, and all this body needs to do is live up to expectations. So my strong belief is that, Cathy, there must be a huge national and regional and continental movement to delegitimize the existing status quo of SADC, because I know that there are progressive leaders within SADC who can be able to support this kind of movement. So rather than us reinventing the wheel, it's going to be very difficult, with these nationalists in power. So I think we need to start it. There must be a huge, continental movement to delegitimize the current status quo of SADC, so that at least we begin to reach some kind of consciousness around its mission. Because really, forming up another body, as you say, it's not going to have legitimacy in terms of the statutory, obligations that are already current in terms of the SADC principles.
The other thing, of course, that I think becomes somewhat of the elephant in the room for conversations of this nature is when we talk about people-to-people solidarity, and that doesn't require governments to get involved, right? It's about the work that civil society groups, that activists are doing within communities, and that can also be cross-border. Why are we seeing such low levels of solidarity when it comes to what is happening in the region. And we can look at Zimbabwe. We can also look at what is happening in Eswatini, where there just doesn't seem to be that mass conviction from the populations that live in this area about, number one, the wrongfulness of their actions, and also to put pressure on their own governments to do something about it. Rejoice?
This is amazing, Cathy. It's a brilliant observation. You know, when the day that President Cyril Ramaphosa legitimized the elections in Zimbabwe in 2023, and the very day that he said that he was going to fly into SADC, you would have expected the South Africans, the progressive South Africans, to rise up in this humongous, momentum of resistance and solidarity. But it never happens. So what really it shows is that perhaps we have not, as Southern Africans, we have not really reached that level of solidarity. I know that Promise is very romantic about this idea of solidarity, but I do not think that we have reached that level. When Masego was murdered by the Swazi regime, I was thinking about a huge picketing and social media on fire and the United Nations being a petition, but that never happened. So perhaps our generation, I'm talking about our 60s, 70s, 80s generation, we are not ready for that, Kate, and perhaps maybe we need to close this chapter of nationalists and wait for a new dawn.
Promise? Hello, Promise?
I can hear you.
Yes. I want you to also reflect on this people-to-people solidarity. Where are things not going right? Why do we not see this solidarity in the region?
Yeah, we've seen it in the past, it has been there, but of course it has taken a decline over the last years, presumably because of increasing repression in various countries and the disorganization or disintegration of civil society as we knew it then, in particular that regional collaboration between key and strategic civil society movements and groupings. In the past, it was centered on the labor movement, on the National Socialist movement, and so on and so forth. And we need to revive those movements. He speaks about the murder of Masego. It is actually prickling my conscience that we did not, as Zimbabweans, give sufficient voice to that gruesome murder that happened there, and equally we are not getting enough and sufficient solidarity from the various regional players in the region. But what I want to say, and where I want to second guess my brother Rejoice, is that it is actually not a romanticism. It is real. We can and we should be in a position to provide substantial solidarity to each other in a more direct or rather parallel to SADC, as a people, as citizens, as civil society, as pro-democracy movements, as the alternative governments in waiting in various parts of the region. And I can tell you that Zambia and indeed many other examples have shown the evolution of SADC and the emergence of new leaders with a progressive thought. And that gives optimism that these movements that are alternative governments can actually become government at some point. And it is important that while they are not yet governments, we inculcate the proper values and principles. When SADC was started during the liberation struggle, none of them was in government, but they were able to organize themselves and counter whatever regional collaboration was there among the colonial governments at the time. So it boils down to us really being sufficiently and effectively organized to organize ourselves and to put up a counter block to SADC.
Ross, the lack of solidarity, what would you say is driving that within the region?
Yeah, Cathy, look, I don't think it's necessarily always a matter of a lack of will. I think that it's extremely difficult to organize under repressive conditions. So if you look, for instance, a little more broadly into Tanzania, for instance, it's very difficult for organizations to take root. It's very difficult for the opposition or for civil society to become a credible, unified voice against repression, because incumbency is powerful, and you see this playing out in Angola as well, although it is promising that the MPLA only won just over 50% of the elections, over 50% of the vote in the last elections. But I do think that it's very difficult for opposition parties to gain traction domestically, never mind across borders. But I do think that it's necessary. It's necessary, for instance, for opposition parties to learn from the Zambian case that's just been mentioned. Again, I don't think that the reason is necessarily attributable to a lack of will. I think that it's predominantly a function of a lack of access to resources, and of course there are other priorities. When you're fighting for survival at home, it's very difficult to think about how to collaborate with others.
Look, I guess that's fair enough, and perhaps South Africa could well be a good example of that there's so much that has been happening internally and locally that too could have a contribution in how far some of these solidarity efforts can go. I want to bring in some of the voice notes sent through by our listeners.
Good day, Cathy and your guests. I think when you're talking about solidarity, I think we need to look at the real history of South Africa and also in the region, because almost always the move towards progress was led by a leftist socialist agenda, or this was the organizing factor. And this is what's really missing in our politics today in the region, and also, but in South Africa, we see a lack of genuine leftist socialist, if you will, policies, that's going to benefit workers, that's going to benefit the region. And the spokespeople for that have also seemed to have kind of disappeared over the years. So I think we have to regain that. We have to look at new political formations.
Morning, Oscar. This time is Bloemfontein. Zimbabweans themselves should be in the front of this fight. You have Zimbabweans that are scattered around the world. Majority are in South Africa, forgetting about what they are coming from home, forgetting about the conditions that is at home. They are living high life in South Africa. If they want a support, they should lead this struggle. If Cathy, I'm going to fight on your behalf, you should take a first stone and throw it. Not expect me to throw the first stone while you are sitting at a peg. Zimbabweans that are scattered around the world, they should be vocal against the regime in Zimbabwe. They should lead a front, like South Africa did during apartheid.
All right, so those are just some of the contributions from our listeners. Promise, I'm going to give you the last word then on this conversation. Where to from here?
Obviously, the struggle for legitimacy and credible elections, not just in Zimbabwe but in the region, must continue, and that struggle must be won. Remember that the liberation struggle, one of the fundamental reasons of the liberation struggle was the attainment of one man, one vote. And paradoxically, the regimes from the liberation movement have continued to undermine the very foundation of that liberation struggle. And I agree with the voice notes, in particular in terms of the rebuilding the leftist movement, rebuilding the people's movement, the workers' unions, and so on and so forth. And these movements have demonstrated in the past that they can be effective solidarity between and among different states, in particular through civil society. You remember the days of COSATU, the ZCTU, and other labor movements within the regime. So it's not an impossibility. It's difficult, yes, Prof. Ras, but it is doable, and it must be done.
All right. Let me thank you so much for your time. Promise Mkonazi, spokesperson for the Citizens Coalition for Change. Rejoice Ngwenya is a Zimbabwean-based political analyst, and Dr. Ross Harvey, Director of Research and Programs at Good Governance Africa. Well, that brings us to the end of our show today on The Talking Point. We're back with you again tomorrow between 9 and midday.
20 outfits of the Premier League are back on the battlefield for another spectacular season, with ambitions to play the world's most competitive and compelling football.
Rodri! City 3! West Ham 1!
This is the massive fight for the ultimate glory.
Caicedo, is he going to try and beat it from inside his own arm? Oh, Moises Caicedo! I can't believe it! What a way to score your first Chelsea goal!
Experience the 2024-2025 Premier League season on Saturdays at 3 p.m. live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. Tugs have a great plan to illustrate that they are not just intelligent students in class, but on the field of play as well. Meanwhile, the Zuma-based outfit want nothing except for 3 points to run away from the unpleasant zone. The capital city confronts eThekwini. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game, University of Pretoria Ladies FC versus Lindelani Ladies FC on Sunday 25 August at 11 a.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and sabcsport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAFM presents another episode of A Life of Purpose, written by Luvuyo Wochela and Lumkile Wiseman Kuhlu. The reader is Lerato Velase.
Coinciding with colonial expansion, in particular, the partitioning of the Transkeian territories into magisterial districts during the 1880s, another small Presbyterian outstation, Mbulukweza, was established in the southwest of the Tsomo district on the northern precincts of Ngamakwe. In that secluded place, at the foot of Ngutu mountain range, a village, Mbulukweza, grew near the Mbulu mission station. The Scots missionaries encouraged Bikani, who was by then already an influential man in Presbyterian church circles, to settle in Mbulukweza village and to assist in the development of the church and an all-important primary school. Mbulukweza became a model settlement where many land-owning African families lived, relying on vegetable farming and intermittent supplies with a local white trader or a general dealer. Although it was missionary work that had led to Bikani's move south, the move also heralded an extension of part of the Nkuhlu family from their symbolic home of Tolobe to a new home at Mbulukweza, from where Tio and later his children, including Wiseman, would emerge. Even so, it was Bikani's first son, William, popularly known as Willie, who gave that Nkuhlu house in Mbulukweza its enduring legacy. Born and raised in the area, Willie started his schooling at Mbulukweza in the late 19th century. He attended the prestigious Blytheswood Mission School, where he gained building and carpentry qualifications. Although this was deemed sparse training at the time, Willie used his skills in the expansion of the Mbulukweza School and mission buildings, as well as for many homes in the village. Willie's social and cultural life emulated that of his father. He married Makambula Pai Jacob, who was also a qualified teacher, and in the second decade of the 20th century, they began their family of 7 children. Taking care of these offsprings was gratifying, but also challenging. With a steadfast but a simple philosophy that centered on the church and schooling, Willie and Makambula handed down the qualities of diligence, faith, education, and reliability to their children. Conscious of the bequest his father had planted, Willie continued growing crops on the Mbulukweza land that had been passed on to him. He had also become a church elder, and he grew into one of the most influential evangelists in the history of the Mbulu Presbyterian Mission Station. Tio Nkuhlu was born in 1917, the third of the 7 children of Willie and Makambula. The fact that he was named after Tio Soga, the first ordained African minister and the missionary of the Presbyterian Church who started the Mgwali Mission Station in 1857, is evidence of his parents' ingrained Christian values. African families, as a rule, ascribe meanings to the names they give their children. Names that may invoke connotations of joyful occurrences, intentions or aspirations, or even features of the natural environment. A name may be handed down in a family, or a child may be named after an admired person. The name-giving exercise is important. Although parents usually choose names, sometimes grandparents, uncles, and aunts, or other members of the extended family may contribute to the name-giving. Tio believed that his parents, particularly his father, wanted his name to perpetuate and enhance Bigani's legacy by following the vocation of the distinguished Tio Soga in the Presbyterian Church. Tio Nkuhlu started his early primary education in the Mbulukweza Mission School, which his grandfather had played a part in establishing. In 1934, he went on to complete primary school at the neighboring village of Luthuli, where he resided with his uncle William Jacob. By that time, the young Tio had shown a keen interest in the horticulture of his Mbulukweza home. William Jacob, who was also an enthusiastic horticulturalist, encouraged Tio's curiosity about the value and multiple use of the soil. At this time, the Union government's Native Affairs Department, NAD, had placed emphasis on training agricultural officers, particularly within the African reserves, which were congested and faced severe ecological breakdown. The Transkeian local council system, the Bunga, that served as an administration model and an auxiliary arm of the NAD within the Transkeian territories in particular, had been given funds for agricultural practice and soil preservation. The agricultural colleges of Fort Cox and Zolo had been established. In 1935, Tio entered Fort Cox, intent on becoming an agricultural extension officer. With outstanding results, he moved after 2 years to do his practical training at the Zolo Agricultural School, and by 1937, he had completed the course with distinction. Yet he recalled his mixed feelings on completion. On one hand, the disappointment that he wouldn't be able to start work at his home area of Tsomo. On the other hand, the excitement of work prospects, even though the vacancy was at Kala, nearly 200 kilometers away, which meant that he was poised to explore a new social and natural environment different to that of Mbulukweza. For the first few years in his work, he was prepared to commute between Kala and Mbulukweza at vacations and at times at weekends. The trips were difficult. A long bus or lorry ride from Kala to Queenstown was followed by a southbound train route via Cathcart and finally to Donair train station near the village, now town, of Stutterheim. That was usually followed by another unpredictable lorry ride, which frequently had to be completed by long-distance walks. This circuitous journey could take 2 days. On a few occasions, Tio tried horse riding, navigating through pathways in the western hinterlands of Kalanga, then into Tofimvaba or via Ngocha, and finally to Tsomo. Even so, the trip did not take less than a day and a half, and quite often he had to seek sanctuary along the way. The journey became almost impossible when sections of the countryside were corralled with fences as a result of the rehabilitation program. During the early 1940s, in the course of serving in different extension services offices within Kala, Tio's life changed when he met Maud Jane Soizwapi. Born in 1916, from a land-owning family of the clan Onozulu in the western Tsomo village of Gqibala. Jane had also undergone mission education. She did her early schooling in her home village and then proceeded to do another Presbyterian mission outstation and the Skubutweni school nearer to Mbulukweza, where she completed primary school. In 1936, at the time Dio was at Fort Cox, she began her teacher's training course in the Mgwali Training School in Stutterheim and completed it in 1939. She started teaching in Xolobe, not far from the original Nkuhlu homestead. It was in 1941, while she was still teaching in this village, that her relationship with Dio matured, and the couple finally married at the Mbulu Presbyterian Church in January 1943. By then, Dio and Jane had almost decided to settle in the Gqala area. Dio's workload had become heavier, and from 1940, he was overseeing 6 villages in the Xalanga district, within the General Council of the United Transkeian Territories, or the Bunga administration. Xalanga district had been configured with the adjacent area of Xofimvaba as the immigrant Tembuland regional area. As one of the earliest districts to adopt the livestock control and soil conservation measures, Xalanga had 5 agricultural officers, including Dio, who all reported directly to a NAD officer and to the Bunga headquarters in Umtata. That growing demand on Dio meant that from 1943 onwards, Jane had to relinquish her teaching position to reside permanently with him near Gqala, and they had to find somewhere suitable to live. As it turned out, the Mbulawa family in Apamnxe, who belonged to the same clan of Onozulu as the Soizwapi folks in Tsomo, offered to serve as the custodians of this newly wedded couple. The wise man is born. Just over a year after the wedding, the couple welcomed their first child, who was born in Gqala on 5 February 1944. Jane and Dio recalled the excitement within the extended families of Nkuhlu and Soizwapi at the time. Both families regarded the child's arrival as the fulfillment of the symbolic link between the clans of Onjeya and Onozulu. The new parents were exhilarated, even though they faced challenging times. Dio was inundated with agricultural extension work, and while Jane had earlier begrudged leaving her teaching position, she now happily accepted the responsibility of child nurturing. Like any other parents, the couple went through the family ritual associated with name-giving and preparing the young child for baptism. There were various Christian demonstrations in Gqala, Anglicans, Methodists, and Catholics, and during the first half of the 20th century, the Dutch Reformed Church came into the area. At Apamnxe, the Anglican Church was particularly entrenched. But when they first arrived in Gqala, Dio and Jane belonged to the Methodist Church. It was from the contented home environment and the Methodist Church that the significant name Lumkile, meaning the wise one or wise man, would emerge. Dio has recounted in recent years how he and Jane were aware of the challenge in naming their first child. Many African names carry symbolic meanings, and the name givers desire the persona of those they name to epitomize its meaning. Once a name is given, it becomes central to a child's earliest sense of identity, and it becomes a lifetime inheritance, identifying its bearer within an immediate and an extended family, surrounded by friends and peers within the surrounding community and in the wider world. Dio chose the name Lumkile. There were 2 main reasons for this name. The meaning and relevance of the name was tied to the rich bequest of the Nkuhlu family, particularly the House of Bikani, which was historically regarded as compromising wise members. Conscious and respectful of such a family legacy, Dio believed that his son would wisely seek knowledge, appreciate the family heritage, and piously connect with the pioneering vocations and wise endeavors of his great-grandfather Bikani and his grandparents Wili and Makambula. But the meaning and the quintessence of the name Lumkile was also associated with the challenges of contemporary times facing the family.
That was another episode of A Life of Purpose, second edition, written by Luvuyo Wachela and Lumkile Wiseman Nkuhlu. The book is available in all leading bookstores countrywide. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursday on The Talking Point. It is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Lerato Mvelase. Technical production by Nanda Koza.
Exactly 12 o'clock on Monday, the 19th of August, 2024. Very warm welcome to Updated Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour.
There's no preoccupation on the part of the NWC about the disbandment of structures and the PEC in particular.
ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula dismisses reports that the ANC's National Working Committee descended on KwaZulu-Natal to disband the PEC in the province, and nearly half, that's 46% of domestic workers in South Africa still earn less than the legally prescribed minimum wage. Coming up in sport.
Great weekend for South Africa. Plenty sports to tell you about, and I bring back my soundbite for no particular reason.
I can't wait. John Gericke with those details later in the show. Please share your views with us. Our SMS line number 41391, charged at R1.50 per SMS. You can also write to us via X or Facebook using the hashtag Updated Noon or our handle at SABC News _radio, or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 082-692-3909. Well, these and more stories coming up on this Monday edition of Updated Noon. First, though, let's bring you up to speed with the latest news. Here's Utsile Saku.
Thanks, Sakina. Top stories. A teenager charged with Devni's Nell's murder and ABSA Group CEO to retire. Good afternoon. A 17-year-old has been charged with the murder of 16-year-old Devin Nell, who was killed at the Overberg High School in Caledon in the Western Cape. NPA spokesperson Eric Ndabazalila says the suspect made his first court appearance at the Caledon Magistrates Court this morning. Nell was reported missing over a week ago after she did not return home from school. Her body was later discovered in a storeroom at the school. Ndabazalila says the case has been postponed for further investigation.
We can confirm that he appeared this morning. He's charged with murder, and his case has been postponed to the 18th of September for further investigation. He will be kept in a place of safety until then. He is a minor, which means that he cannot be identified directly or indirectly because he's a minor.
ABSA Group has announced that its CEO, Ari Rautenbach, will be going on early retirement from the 15th of April next year. Rautenbach will cease to be Group CEO and Executive Director of the ABSA Group and ABSA Bank from the 15th of October before resuming a 6-month contractual notice period, which will be served as garden leave. The board has thanked Rautenbach for his contribution to the group over a career that spanned over 27 years with the organization. Naledi Ngcobo reports.
The ABSA Group has further announced the appointment of Charles Rousson as interim CEO of the ABSA Group and ABSA Bank, effective from the 15th of October 2024. Rousson joined ABSA Capital in 2006 as Chief Financial Officer and has held numerous senior roles in the group, including his current role as Chief Executive of ABSA's Corporate and Investment Bank, as well as Group Executive Committee member. Naledi Ngcobo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The Social Security Agency SASSA has urged aggrieved applicants whose disability applications have been rejected to follow legislative processes of appealing. The agency has assured all applicants that contracted medical practitioners receive training before they start any disability-related assessment. SASSA spokesperson Paseka Letsatsi says they can't go back to the old process where applicants would go to their private doctors to get required documents, as this opens the door to fraudulent activities.
In one area, I won't mention the place, would have experienced some years back that majority of people there suddenly qualified for disability grant, only to find out when we made the investigations